But without further ado, I'd like to get on to the main purpose for being here today and to introduce you to Ben Watts. Ben is the Director of M&A, Mergers and Acquisitions and Investment at EQUANS, and he's going to provide an introduction to the company and a bit of background on their role in the joint Clean Growth Fund, Clean Growth Innovation Fund with Innovate UK. Ben, over to you.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you. Let me just share my screen. Yeah, thanks. So thanks again, Martin, and good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for attending. And thanks to the Cambridge Cleantech team for all of their support in putting on the event today and hosting the event. So I will just spend a few minutes introducing EQUANS and explaining how the Clean Growth Innovation Fund fits into our wider strategy in the UK. I'll summarise our objectives and the mechanics of the fund and what we're able to offer to startups to help you grow your businesses. But first, just a bit about EQUANS. So as Martin mentioned, EQUANS is part of ENGIE and was created on the 1st of July, so only 3 weeks ago, to bring together all of the services or client solutions activity, as it's sometimes described, across our group. So EQUANS has 74,000 employees and revenues of 12 billion euros. We have operations in 17 countries, mostly across Europe, but also with significant interests in North America, Latin America, and in Australia as well. In the UK, all of ENGIE's activity in technical services, facilities management, energy services, and regeneration are all now part of EQUANS, including various specialist energy-related capabilities such as smart buildings, our activities around e-mobility, our district and embedded energy activity, and our decentralised renewables activity. We have three strategic drivers. So firstly, the energy transition. So this is about supporting our customers in the identification, the delivery and management of integrated energy projects that support their net zero carbon commitments. Secondly, the industrial transition, to optimise industrial plants and processes to increase productivity. And finally, the digital transition, to collect, analyse and use data to create meaningful and valuable insights. So I shall come back to these drivers later when I talk about the strategic focus areas for the fund. But before I do, I'm going to share a short video that provides a bit more background on EQUANS activities in the UK. I would just warn people that the sound seems a little bit loud, so apologies for that. When it comes in, I can't seem to change it at my end, so you might want to just be ready to adjust your volume shortly.
In the UK and Ireland, we are leaders in energy solutions, technical and FM services, and regeneration. We combine our skills and expertise to enable customers to embrace a greener, more efficient, and increasingly digital world. The approach is customer-led, delivering positive outcomes across the built environment, from homes to cities, hospitals to the heart of government, and offices to industry. We are a long-term partner who customers can rely on day in, day out, to open up to new ideas, pioneer new solutions, and help them to achieve their goals. Using technology and analytics to empower the customer, smart buildings to enhance the workplace, renewable solutions to make net zero carbon happen, and improving places to transform entire neighbourhoods. We are also shaping the future of responsible business, balancing performance with a positive impact on people and the planet. Together, we're creating value for the benefit of individuals, businesses, and communities, both for today and tomorrow.
Great. So hopefully that provides a bit more of a sense of who we are, EQUANS here in the UK, some of the services we provide in the markets that we operate in. Looking now to our innovation strategy and the role of the Clean Growth Innovation Fund, there are really two key points. So firstly, around our approach and culture. So this is about open innovation. It's about listening to our customers and co-developing integrated solutions with them and other partners that address pain points. In addition to the Clean Growth Innovation Fund, we're involved in a number of collaboration projects and innovation projects. These include our net zero carbon Rugeley smart local energy system detailed design project, where we're the lead partner, and the net zero Northwest industrial cluster roadmap project, where we're the largest industrial partner. And the reason I mention these projects is that we believe that bringing together teams and businesses with diverse backgrounds, experiences and skills creates the best environment in which to develop and deploy new solutions, and enables us to move faster and have greater impact than would otherwise be the case. So the Clean Growth Innovation Fund creates the opportunity for these sort of strategic collaborations with some of the UK's most dynamic and creative companies. Secondly, our focus on strategic growth. So our innovation activities focused around a number of strategic growth areas that link back to the three drivers that I mentioned earlier. You may recognise these as the challenge areas that have been launched through the KTM platform, and we'll hear more about these later from EQUANS colleagues who are leading in these areas to give you a bit more detail and colour around these particular topics. And finally, onto the Clean Growth Innovation Fund itself. So this is a 3-year partnership between EQUANS and Innovate UK that was established in 2019. The fund value is £4 million, representing £2 million of grant funding from Innovate UK, leveraging aligned funding of at least £2 million from EQUANS. So it's important to note that EQUANS aligned funding will be in the form of equity, with the expectation that we will take minority stakes, and the value of that funding can exceed the grant from Innovate UK. Companies can apply for up to £1.2 million through the fund, and typically companies will be looking to scale up and be at seed or Series A stage. All companies must be UK registered SMEs to be eligible. The key for us, and the reason that we're so excited about working with startups and scale-ups, is the strategic value created through collaboration and partnership, leading to these differentiated products and services for our customers. For you as potential investee companies, we can provide access to our customer base, our specialists and our people, and to capital to support your growth and development. So I think that's me out of time. I'm going to leave it there, but just before I do, just in case I don't get the chance later, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to the fantastic team at the KTN for their work supporting the fund, and to Martin and the Cambridge Cleantech team again for organising today's event, and of course to Innovate UK as our partner. More detail will follow over the course of this event around the process and more on the strategic focus areas later on, but for now I'm going to hand over to Christian Inglis, I think, from Innovate UK. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Ben. So yes, next up we have Christian Inglis, who's Head of Urban Systems at Innovate UK. And if we've just heard the context from Ben from EQUANS, we're now going to get the Cleantech, the Innovate UK side of the story. So Christian, over to you.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you, Ben. Can you hear me okay? Just to double check.
We can indeed. Thank you, Christian.
Good stuff. Thank you. So thank you for the opportunity to speak as well, and great to hear from Ben. So yeah, Christian Inglis, Head of Urban Systems at Innovate UK, part of our Clean Growth Directorate. I guess I just wanted to give you a few slides on kind of the context of all of this, in that whole looking at scaling net zero as we strive to sort of goals of 2050, and looking at the global opportunities that brings about. But I think just going back a little bit, I actually changed my slides a little bit last minute because knowing how many people were joining this call, I didn't know just how many people already know about Innovate UK and what we do. So I just wanted to do a couple of sort of slides reflecting on what Innovate does as a whole. So I think, you know, the importance of innovation is the point on this slide. So UK ranks 5th in Global Innovation Index. Innovation accounts for up to 50% of labour productivity growth. Firms that persistently invest in R&D have higher productivity, and innovating companies are more likely to export and generate growth. So, you know, this slide is really just about flagging that importance of why innovation is so important to the economy, for society and the environment when you're thinking about clean growth as well. So if you can go on to the next slide, please. So to enable that to happen, that's why I believe Innovate UK is here. So we're the UK's innovation agency, and it's all about investing in new ideas and technologies and connecting businesses to the right people. It's about driving economic growth and social benefits, and in the context of net zero, it's about driving environmental benefits as well. So I guess it's just a point of saying, you know, we're Innovate UK, we're here, we're the UK's innovation agency, and we are looking at different ways of how we can invest in ideas and people and businesses to help them scale with new solutions for the future. And that's across a whole range and host of technology areas, right from digital and artificial intelligence to healthcare space to looking at net zero and things like energy, place, and smart infrastructure. So if we can go on to the next slide, please. So just to give you some, I guess, facts and figures, we started up in 2007, so we've been around a fair few years now, and we've invested a large amount of money in grant funding, around 2.5 billion, with industry matching that grant funding to deliver R&D projects. And we are seeing, you know, outputs in terms of productivity and jobs and added value to the economy, where we're sort of saying for every £1 that we're putting in, we're getting about £6 to £7 out back to the economy. We funded around 11,000 projects, 8,500 unique organisations. I know this slide is slightly out of date now, it probably needs updating, but it's just to give you some of the context for those that don't know Innovate UK and what we're about. And, you know, what we're really interested in is around R&D solutions that can then scale to be the new products, processes and services of the future. So we're interested in how those businesses scale as a result of that innovation and de-risking that technology. So that's why factors like 9 jobs created for each organisation involved in a project is really important to us, and jobs created and value and productivity created through those programs. Now that's a bit of a look back before we started to look at our tool set back probably about 4 or 5 years ago to say, well, how can we best invest in businesses to grow and scale? It's not just about providing a grant for somebody to spend some money on an R&D project. It's about what we can do with that and help those businesses follow on from that. So if we go to the next slide, please. This one is just, oh, sorry, one before that. So this is sort of just linking back that broader Innovate UK context to thinking about sort of net zero and innovation and what we need to do by 2050 to really make a massive difference to that net zero goal. So we need things, emission reduction solutions that must be scalable to contribute to net zero. And we need to start scaling now. So it's great to invest in those early stage ideas as well, and those things that can really disrupt things for the future. But we also need to start scaling some of the solutions that have got a little bit of traction now, or quite a decent amount of traction now, to really start making those impacts for the future. And we know that takes time, it takes effort, it takes resources, and it takes people. So that's why we're really focused around net zero and scaling proposition in terms of thinking about the future programs we're going to deliver. And we're interested in looking at biggest projected global markets, looking at UK strengths to serve with new products and services, and to look that the timing is right to invest. So if we move to the next slide, please. So this is getting to the point about why the Investor Partnership Programme and the collaboration with EQUANS is so important to help us understand how these things can work. For us, some of the net zero challenges are around that need to adopt technologies. So we need to scale. To scale, we need to uptake of solutions, which means these are commercially viable, affordable, and better meet end user needs. Money is needed to scale. We need to catalyse significant private investment. It can't just be done through government funding on its own. It needs to be in that partnership phase where we're bringing together great ideas with the investments and the people that can help scale them. We need to shift systems. So we need to scale net zero solutions that will need new and alternative collaborations, industrial capacity and business models. So these are some of the net zero challenges to actually scale what innovation can or what new R&D, new technologies, new processes can help show. So next slide, please. So I wanted to just move on, and I've only got a couple more slides before my 10 minutes is up, hopefully. So I just wanted to show, I guess, our tool set, and I guess this slide is really aimed at the businesses on the call to show the different ways that we can fund through things like feasibility studies, demonstration pilots, collaborative R&D, and some of the more traditional competitions that we funded, the grant-focused ones, SBRI programs, are also in there as well. The newer ones that we're looking at are things like how do we finance? So we have an innovation loans program now that maybe not everyone on this call that perhaps knew Innovate UK 4 or 5 years ago would know that we've got an innovation loans program active. We're looking at sort of the equity market as a whole and how we can contribute to that in a way. But what we have now in our funding mix in the tool set is over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been testing out what we call investor partnerships, of which this Clean Growth Innovation Fund is one of, where the companies are essentially getting 100% funding to deliver a project, but that's through aligned investment with a private investor. So we've done 11 investor partnerships so far, and we're testing out with EQUANS, working with a corporate VC who also has a strategic interest in those opportunities. And that's why I get really excited, because I think it's only through partnerships that we can really make that scaling happen. And it's really interesting. I'd just like to give you a bit of a factoid of the first investor partnership pilot that I was involved with that looked at infrastructure systems. We funded 11 projects. So it was about £1 million of grant. And if you look at, this was about 3 years ago, if you look at the investment that's rolled into those companies over the last 3 or 4 years, there's about £50 million worth of investment that's gone into those companies, not just at this time when we ran the competition, which is where we're at now with the EQUANS program, but all, you know, the follow-on investment rounds are really happening for those companies with really interesting and novel solutions. It's really important to note we've also got support that is around the non-monetary side of things. So obviously we're working with the KTN on this event today, Knowledge Transfer Network, brings together academic and industry links and supply and demand matching. We also have the Innovate Edge program, and we also have the Catapult Centres. I'm not going to say too much about them today in this talk, because I really want to focus around the investor partnership side of things. So next slide, please. So this is my last slide. I kind of wanted to bring it to life, really, to talk about a success story that links to investment. So some of you may know Upside Energy, smart grid tech, looking at energy storing devices and connecting them up. So we supported through Innovate UK from Upside really early days as a startup, and grant funding allowed firm to hire the first member of staff and test out some of the principal de-risk technologies. And then you see, Upside Energy through Graham Oakes, a quote from him about, you know, we raised our first equity round a year ago. This is a bit out of date now, but without Innovate UK funding before that, we would have never got to the point of getting investors. And it's really making that point about that scaling journey. And it's really interesting to note that Upside Energy were acquired by Octopus Energy back in 2020. So they are really on that scaling journey. We're providing solutions to the UK's energy system and really helping those businesses grow, as well as solving that technological problem that needs the R&D project to do it. And I really truly believe the investor partnership program, and particularly this one with EQUANS, is such a great opportunity for us to bring together that great innovations from SMEs that need that de-risking to move them on from one point to the next point, but also that opportunity from the private VC investment, corporate investment, to really help that company think about the scaling journey and look at investing in that company to make sure the business proposition is also of the scale that's needed. So I guess with that, I kind of want to close. So hopefully on a good positive point there with a success story. And I'm hoping to see through this fund that we get the next 4 or 5, 6 or 7 great stories we're going to talk about over the next years, which is turning some great ideas into reality and solving solutions for the challenge of net zero by 2050. So with that, I'll finish there.
Okay, Christian, thank you very much indeed, and also for keeping us to time. We've got a packed agenda today. So we've heard from both partners who've put the funding together for this Clean Growth Innovation Fund, and that's terrific marriage in itself. But of course, what we really want to see is the marriage between those two large organisations, the corporate and the government agency, and the SMEs who can get some funding from this particular fund. So we thought about this, and I mentioned at the outset, we have our own scale-up program where we've introduced over 70 innovation-hungry corporates to innovators. I think most recently we've had First Base and Deutsche Telekom. We send their innovation shopping list out and we get 40 odd responses from innovators from across Europe, and we put that back to the corporates and they go ahead and have meetings with them, and ultimately, of course, they're looking for contracts. So we're looking for that success, basically, in this case, in terms of funding. So we thought we'd bring in somebody who's a specialist about getting that win-win between corporates and SMEs. And so I'd like to now introduce Uday Phakde, who's the co-founder of Triple Chasm, who's going to talk to us just about that. I think, Uday, you better tell us about Triple Chasm as well, because it sounds a bit painful. Presumably it's something to do with the business journey, I suspect. But over to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Martin. I want to try and it's really interesting listening to the previous speakers, because you've set this stage up very well for me in terms of the things that you want to focus on. And so for the next 10 minutes, I want to try and bring to life some of the challenges around corporate SME partnerships and how you can make them more successful. And in order to create a proper framework for that discussion, this slide, I hope you can see it and you can hear me. Yep.
We can hear you, Uday. We can't see your slide yet.
You can't see my slide yet?
Sylvie,
right.
Can you see the slides?
No, I can't.
Oh dear.
Have you shared them?
Yes, I'm going to go back to, this is very weird.
I can do it for you.
Could you actually do it, Sylvie? Yeah, it'd be much better if you do it, because I seem to have a problem here. When he tested it, it was fine, but...
Yeah, don't worry. You can start and I will put the slides.
That's great, Sylvie. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Sylvie. So if you can go to the next slide, Sylvie. So in order to drive all this, since 2010, my colleagues and I, we've been trying to get real data about how companies grow, because there's a lot of folklore and you can buy thousands of books in bookshops about how companies grow. So this is the first sort of data-driven insight that we're able to gather. And what you see on here, very quick explanation, the y-axis is cumulative customer growth, which is really how you should measure the growth of your business, not how much money you've raised. And the x-axis is how long is the time axis, and they're normalized, these axes. And what you see is our research showed that all companies are, all innovation-based growth is governed by the diffusion equation, but there are these three discontinuities en route. And we call them chasms. And it's based on Jeffrey Moore's work from California in the 1990s, where we identified the first chasm. So the idea here is that all of you, all the SMEs and corporates, whenever you're developing a product, you're going to cross these three chasms. The first one is creating a prototype. The second is getting a sustainable business model. And the third is when you're actually trying to scale numbers. And in the top right-hand corner, you see the two books that we've written based on all this research work. So if you go to the next slide, Sylvie. And this is a schematic which captures this. And the reason I like doing this is really to try and show you what the real impact of these numbers is. Those of you with eagle eyes will spot that the y-axis on the left-hand side has a log scale. And on the right-hand side, that's a linear scale. So the news from all this, it confirmed why it's so hard to get companies going. The initial growth is much, much slower than all these S-curves that MIT have published over the years would lead you to believe. So it takes a long time to get a business going. So the key message here is to try and understand where you are on your journey relative to the chasms. Next one, Sylvie. Now, so park in your head the idea that maturity of your product proposition is one key building block. So it's great to know where you are, but what are you going to do about it? So the second key thing that emerged from all this research program was we ended up reinventing a branch of economics called mesoeconomics, where we effectively define the levers that you can pull in order to advance a business. And that's grouped into external levers, which are about market spaces and framing your proposition customers and how you go to market, internal levers, which are to do with technology or IP and how you deploy and manufacture stuff, and then the trade-offs, which is what is your strategic positioning and what is your business model. And the key learnings from all this that really were that different companies may have different strategic approaches. And so strategic diversity is the key to what you're trying to do. So if we can have the next slide here. Right, and this led us, because all this huge data we had, over 3,000 companies globally, many different market spaces, everything from healthcare to vaccine creation to agri-food industries with farm to fork to clean energy to transport systems and charging systems infrastructure. We basically created a way of being able to profile and clarify where you are at. And what this actually shows you, we created this idea of commercialization intensity. And this is the real plot of a company at a particular point in time, which shows you what its commercialization intensity profile looks like. And you will hear from it, you've heard from Innovate UK, there's talk about, you know, the sweet spot in terms of where you're looking at in terms of, so we've modified the TRL definition and went back to NASA's original definition because it's been modified in various ways. And so we prefer MTRL or CRL, which is commercialization readiness level. And that's what you're seeing here. And the commercialization intensity is a measure of how far you're along on this journey. So next slide, Sylvie. Thank you. And this basically was the most amazing thing. We ended up with all these thousands of companies in the data set, which showed that the commercialization intensity required goes up as your readiness level goes up. So in other words, if you're starting from a research lab, you're at CRL 0 or MTRL 0, and as you're trying to get your first prototype built, you're at about 3 or 4. And the big challenge comes around Chasm 2. And all of you know this, of course, because that's the place where you need to have a sustainable business model. So next slide, Sylvie. And this basically pulls the two different strands together. So we pull together the commercialization maturity, and we pull the vector model together. And this is real data, which shows you the relative importance of different things at different points on your journey. And what you'll see on here, the area I've shaded in red is where you're trying to create a sustainable business model. And so the reason this is so important, we discovered all the successful corporate SME partnerships were actually in that red space. So typically people had built the first product, you know, in their garage or wherever else they were trying to do. But the real trick was to develop a commercially sustainable proposition. And around the CRL level 6, 7, around Chasm 2 is where they got the biggest traction from corporates. So as corporates could see where the customer application space could be, they could appreciate the technology maturity and how it might be deployed, and they could provide real feedback in terms of taking a product to market with a sustainable business model. So next slide, Sylvie.
1 minute, please, Uday.
Yeah, so that's me. So what I want, so if you go back to the previous slide, Sylvie, just keep that up. So the real message from our research and our work is really, this illustrates the importance of the partnership between EQUANS and Innovate UK's funding mechanism through the KTM, which is they're interested in areas where you've demonstrated your initial prototype idea, but they want to be able to help you to achieve commercial traction. And of course, a strategic partnership with a corporate gets you more than money. It gets you market access, it gives you know-how, and it gets you people who will actually help you to shape your proposition. So that's me done, Martin.
Uday, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for keeping to time. So we've heard from the two owners of the fund, if I can call them that. And we've just heard some research and theory into how that marriage can take place between corporates and innovators. Now let's hear from the horse's mouth, as it were. Let's hear from somebody who has been working successfully in partnership with ENGIE, and that is Matthew Lumsden, who is the Chief Exec at Connected Energy. Matthew, over to you.
Thanks, Martin. Good afternoon, everybody. I will share my screen now. Is that working okay?
That's great.
Yes.
Thank you, Matthew.
Excellent. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Hi, Matthew Lumsden from Connected Energy. I'm going to talk a little bit about our business, give you an illustration of some of the collaborative work that we're enjoying success from in terms of working with ENGIE, and then also just referring back to this innovation fund and perhaps give a bit of insight into some of the benefits we've felt we've gained from this particular funding model. So if I just talk a little bit about some of the problems we're trying to solve as a business, we're producing energy storage systems that use second life electric vehicle batteries, and in so doing, I guess we're trying to solve two fairly major problems. One is that as electric vehicles are driven, charged, etc., the batteries gradually degrade, and they get to a point where they can't provide the range that's required of the owner or the driver of the vehicle. But there's still a significant proportion of usable capacity remaining in those batteries. So what do we do with them? And the second side of the problem is obviously the thing that you guys are all completely familiar with, which is the energy trilemma. And we have a part of that which is about decarbonisation of the grid and the integration of distributed non-dispatchable generation. And the challenge there is that any engineer will tell you that you need energy storage as part of the mechanism that enables this energy transition. So where we sit in the picture is that we're providing a bridge between two problems. So by developing energy storage systems that can be utilizing the embedded resources that are in those batteries, so we're getting more value out of those batteries, turning them into scalable energy storage systems that then can be used in the grid, we obviously get more value from the batteries, and we help on the journey of decarbonisation. We've heard the word scalable used quite a lot to date, so we needn't necessarily go into the details of this graph, but basically the projections show that there will be huge volumes of second life batteries becoming available, and this graph varies quite a lot, but we anticipate that sometime between about 2024 and 2027 there'll be a real ramp up of availability of second life batteries, and these that poses two challenges. One is there's a technical solution that's required to enable them to be reused, but there's also a commercial solution. How do you create a financeable model to build large scale energy storage that's effectively using second-hand batteries? But we have two positive drivers there. One is there's a huge growth in battery availability, and second is that the energy storage market is growing dramatically as well. So our business is purely about energy storage using second life batteries. We've been through a process of developing smaller scale containerized systems, and we have a few systems installed in the UK, Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands, and those are proven in terms of the functionality that's required for grid scale energy storage. And we set off as a business to not just be a technology business. So I guess going back to the previous presentation, building a full capability of understanding how customers generate revenue from storage. Because we're so new, because this industry is so new, we've had to focus on the full value chain, working right from OEMs through to recyclers to make the system commercially viable. And as a system, we provide all the flexibility and site integration that you would expect of an energy storage system. But if I reflect back on the previous slide, we set off as a business to say, well, this is our stakeholders are organizations like Renault, who will have huge volumes of batteries. So we have to be a scalable business. So we set out, really importantly, to go out and get some strategic investors who could help us scale a business globally and respond in terms of technology as and when the batteries become available around the world. And if I just touch on our stakeholder model then, so we work with, these are examples of some of the battery manufacturers and EV manufacturers we're working with, collaborating with, and in discussions with on the left-hand side. And we work with them because they provide us with the batteries, but they also provide us with a collaborative approach to installing them within systems. And what does that mean? That means they exchange data, which means that the systems are safe and we're able to understand how the systems will perform. We work with fleet managers and other organizations that actually own batteries. So what does that mean? That means that people are interested in owning batteries all the way through their life, and they're moving towards a model where they'll actually provide us with batteries on a service basis. And that means that we're getting visibility of when the batteries become available in fleets, when they'll become available in second life, and we can build out a project pipeline that's suited to the type of batteries we can see and the availability that's coming from the fleets. So moving another step to the right, we can then tailor our systems to ensure we can take the volume and the technology associated with those batteries. And we're then working with strategic partners like our investors, Sumitomo and ENGIE and Renault, to identify projects and build out a project pipeline waiting for those batteries. And at the right-hand side, we're working with recyclers who can take the batteries when we finish with them, but also part of our feedstock will come from some of those recyclers. So we provide a bridge across this value chain. So if I relate that to some of the stuff that's really going well with ENGIE, so ENGIE obviously have global contacts, they have major customers, some of whom are battery suppliers, fleet operators, etc., etc. So working with ENGIE, we're able to get access to more battery sources. We're able to work with fleets and provide a residual value for the batteries that those fleets will ultimately dispose of, which helps them with their business model. By understanding that flow of batteries, we're able to hone our technology, but also look at the requirements of ENGIE in terms of financing and building out energy storage systems. So that gives us really good visibility of what we should be doing in terms of scaling our technology and the functional requirements and the market requirements. So that gives us really good visibility of what our R&D pipeline should look like. And then just in terms of the final piece of the jigsaw, then working with recyclers and building up a joint proposition works really well in terms of maximizing the value from the full lifetime, shall we say. Right, so that's working really well. Let's talk about this funding. So the Clean Growth Innovation Fund. So I think everybody so far has completely missed a point. So I'll be slightly controversial here. So we went out to get strategic investors who could help us build our business. Now that's really easy to say, but it is incredibly difficult actually to, capitalize on this global organization that has everything you need. But how the hell do you get it when it's spread all around the world? It's an organization of hundreds of thousands of people, etc., etc. So to successfully leverage that partnership, what we've learned is you really have to set out, you have to understand each other's objectives, you have to be really clear, you have to really scope a collaborative relationship, and you have to really agree how you're going to support each other in terms of scaling up your business. So some of the things that we identified was, well, scaling the business is a big challenge. How do we secure the batteries? How do we build out the pipeline in advance of the batteries coming? How do we make sure that that's attractive to ENGIE, etc.? From a financing perspective, systems need to have performance guarantees, and they have to have data to enable us to provide warranties and to underpin that investment. So we set out this data validator project, which is funded by the Clean Growth Innovation Fund, ENGIE, and some other investors that came in alongside. And what that's done is really forced us to sit down and agree some objectives that are really key to helping us work together. So it's a really structured collaboration with some really tightly focused objectives, which enable us to use what is ultimately £1.2 million, which is you've got to make sure you don't squander that. You've got to build some value. So this model has been really successful in doing that, and we've set out these objectives that I've listed down there, and I won't go through them into detail, but ultimately this will really help us in positioning our technology and our commercial proposition alongside ENGIE so that they can help us commercialize it. So I think it's a really good model. That's all I've got to say. So thank you for the time.
Matthew, that's terrific. Thank you very much. I thought your, well, first of all, I don't think you need to apologise for being controversial. We like that. We like controversy. And I thought your presentation was in two halves. It was your generic standard presentation where you spoke sort of normally. Then you said, yeah, but I want to be controversial. This is what it's all really about. And your sort of tone changed. You said, this is how it really is. Warts and all, T-shirts, all the rest of it. Scars, if I'm not mixing my metaphors. So I really do appreciate that sort of commentary. Thank you very much indeed. Right, I did notice that somebody was asking about, yes, but what's the process for applying for this funding? We're going to come on to that, the process part. But first of all, we're just going to hear from 4 of the industrial sort of challenge leaders from ENGIE or EQUANS, and they're just going to take us through in 3 minutes each what the focus is on each of those 4 challenges. So first up, we have Kirti Rudra, who's the Energy and Carbon Solutions Development Director. Kirti, over to you.
Thanks, Martin, and it's a pleasure to meet you all today. So as Martin's outlined, my team look after net zero strategies for our clients across all sectors. So we create and enable net zero opportunities with them, co-developing those solutions, thinking about the longer term profile and how a region could develop, or how a place could develop, or how the organisation would change over time. As part of those customers, industrial, as Ben outlined earlier, is a major target of ours, and we have a strong portfolio of industrial clients that we would like to enhance our offering to through this fund and through this opportunity to collaborate with yourselves. This will include thinking about how we can effectively support them in carbon accounting and compliance requirements, data capture through understanding techno-economic modelling, technology assumptions, capital costs, and when to deploy which technology at what time, and in particular digital tools or Industry 4.0 solutions. Thank you, Martin. You're on mute, Martin.
I'm bound to get it wrong with doing so many introductions eventually. Thank you. So next we have James Spires, who's the MD for Smart Buildings, and obviously he's going to talk about the challenge around the built environment. James.
Thanks, Martin. Good to meet you all. So yes, I'm James Spires, Managing Director for EQUANS' Smart Buildings activity in the UK. As a team, I've got a team of R&D experts across both software and IoT. And we look to create value for our customers in three core areas. So one is how they can decarbonise their estate and digital solutions that enable them to do that. Secondly is how they can optimise the assets that are contained within their estate. And thirdly, focusing on the people, how we can promote healthy and efficient working environments. So some of the solutions that we deliver to customers are around things like carbon accounting and reporting, very much a focus on compliance, how we can really harness data from their estates and drive deeper insight and solutions on the back of that. Looking at how IoT and PropTech can reinvigorate some of the more aging estates that some of our customers own. Looking at broader platforms around energy and asset management, so looking at how behind the meter assets can be used in the emerging market of flexibility, but also then how we can interact with building users in a more educational and gamification way. So a broad array of areas we focus on, but I guess I'm really keen to understand how you as innovative organisations differentiate yourselves and really drive value out for your customers. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Martin.
James, thank you very much. And next up, we're going to be looking at smarter and greener places and the challenge around that. And it's going to be Hayden Scarborough, who's the Integrated Solutions Director. Hayden.
Indeed, thank you, Martin, and good afternoon, everybody. Good to virtually meet you all, clearly speak. Integrated Solutions Director within a part of the EQUANS UK business called Places and Communities, which I guess gives you a clue as to my area of operation. You've heard from Kirti and James about decarbonisation and digital solutions, and I want to zoom in a little bit on decentralisation and perhaps democratisation as well. And so zoom in on place, the places where we live, cities, towns, neighbourhoods and communities, of course. We have a clear purpose in the division that I work within to deliver positive social, environmental an economic benefit to local communities, clearly combining all the skills that Ben articulated earlier in energy, technical FM services and regeneration. Often our work works with local government, so local authorities, health trusts, and the voluntary sector within a place. And so this call is really about looking for ideas, innovation in the phrase smart local energy solutions or systems, which is an acronym SLES for those that might know it. I guess just picking up on each of the words: smart, digital, say local, democratized, doing with, not doing to, and energy, obviously all the context around decentralization and decarbonisation as well. And so on the screen there are a number of different areas: so mobility, infrastructure, energy, and of course education, and a couple of the examples on the screen there as well. I'll just zoom in on education, and we're firm believers that in order to transition our places and communities to net zero, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take every actor. People in the energy sector talk about actors. We as individuals are all actors, and part of the philosophy that I am pushing into the work that we do is linkage to the education system, linkage to schools, linkage to universities. How through that channel can we perhaps allow individuals to understand how they can positively behave in respect to the net zero transition. So if you've got any ideas on what's on the screen there, in SLES, in EV charging, in smart city solutions, in the housing retrofit area, or how to link with schools and universities, then I'd be very clearly interested in talking to you. Thank you, Martin.
Hayden, thank you very much for that. Yes, certainly. Yes, education and skills at the moment seems to be on the news every day, so highly topical. So thank you for that. And now, last but by no means least, we have Chris O'Connor, who's the Strategic Development Manager at EQUANS, and he's going to be talking about decarbonisation of heat.
Thanks, Martin. So afternoon, everybody. I'm going to talk through the decarbonisation of heat challenge for a couple of minutes. Now, decarbonisation of heat really is a challenge. In my opinion, it's got to be one of the hardest, if not the hardest, challenges facing the UK as we move towards net zero. And as a business, EQUANS, we really think that we're at the forefront of trying to drive some of this change. So we're the UK's kind of largest city scale provider of district heating networks. We own and operate 9 schemes up and down the UK, from Southampton, London, Birmingham, up to Edinburgh. So we're very much there at a kind of a city scale. But we've also got the award-winning ENGIE Zero whole house retrofit solution. So we're active in multiple different areas of the market, really trying to bring about this change. That said, we do really need your support. So what we're doing at the moment is only part of the puzzle, and it's going to take collaborating with innovators such as yourself to actually drive scalable change in this sector. So what are we looking for? We're looking for disruptive technologies, platforms, business models, pretty much anything that can decarbonize heat and accelerate change as fast as possible. We're also looking for engagement tools that change the way that consumers interact with heat and unlock new business models to bring about the change. So what do we mean by this? Well, as a kind of huge district heating supplier, anything that tackles this issue is very interesting to us. So stuff that improves the operational efficiency of our existing schemes, that allows us to integrate low carbon heat sources into our existing networks, or basically just helps us gain more visibility and control over these networks. We're interested in how heat networks can integrate with other energy vectors. So Hayden talked about smart local energy systems. How can we use heat to provide wider system flexibility? We're very interested in waste heat recovery in particular. So as a low carbon heat source, how can we make sure we're making the most out of the heat that's being expelled elsewhere and using that to heat our homes and heat commercial premises? Big data is going to be very big in this sector. So whereas we're seeing a lot of data being used in the energy sector, this is perhaps lagging behind a bit in the heat world. And we're very interested in anyone with innovative solutions to tackle this. And finally, on a day like today, it probably feels quite relevant to talk about low carbon cooling. So it's often something that's kind of overlooked in the industry. Part of our district schemes provide cooling as well. So if you've got any innovative solutions that can provide cooling without impacting the environment, again, we're interested in that. So look forward to talking to you in the breakout room in a minute. Cheers, Martin.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to all 4 of you for the contributions there, looking at those individual challenges in a little bit more detail. So thank you very much for that. Maybe we should introduce you to AirTech, Chris, the company that's got the funding from Barclays, because there's a sort of an cooling brick for buildings, but we can talk about that separately. So we've heard about the strategic context for the Clean Growth Innovation Fund. We've heard a little bit about some research into how corporates and SMEs can work constructively together. We heard from the horse's mouth about a successful case study from Connected Energy, and a little bit more detail, as I've just mentioned. And now the bit you've all been waiting for: how do you get your hands on that funding? How do you get Innovate UK and EQUANS to open their checkbook? Obviously, you've got to bear in mind what we've just heard all morning, but what is the process for this? So let's hear now from Dr. Louise Jones, who's the Knowledge Transfer Manager at the Energy Systems KTN, who's going to talk to us about the process and the platform for this. Louise, over to you.
Thanks, Martin. Just getting my screen share up. Can you see my slides?
We can, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies, I'm sat in a very hot barn conversion. I am absolutely melting up here. I am Louise Jones. I work at KTN. Mainly my job is largely to do with our innovation exchange platform and kind of getting more challenges on board. So I was delighted when Ben said, can we do several and get some more innovators to come and spend some of our funds. So I'm going to go through a bit of process. I do speak really quickly anyway, so do keep up. The Innovation Exchange Programme was really designed to get innovators into supply chains that maybe they wouldn't normally. So this was kind of born out of the offshore wind sector originally, in that there was no money, no funding, nobody wanted to support offshore wind anymore, but they had challenges, and we were damn certain that innovators could solve those challenges. So we born an idea of how can we do open innovation a bit differently. We at KTN would say we are very good at having lots of cross-sector contacts. So can we do stuff that might mean that other innovators in different sectors could solve challenges that are real here and now problems in big industries. Just a very simple diagram of where it's kind of come on to now from how it started as offshore wind. We're doing an awful more now across the whole of the energy piece and urban, which will appeal to Christian, who I'm hoping is still on the call. It started as large organisations, but we've done some more recent work with local authorities because they are also recognising that they've got challenges in their patch that they can't deliver and need innovators to get them on their net zero journey. So I'd loosely say anything that's got a net zero piece in it, we have support from Innovate UK to support large corporates. And then on the other side of that is that obviously we need innovators to deliver stuff. We can't just say there's a large challenge. We need innovators to buy in and actually solve this stuff. This is how our platform looks. If you come on and have a look at our platform, and a very simple process. So it's not the lengthy Innovate UK application form that many people will be used to. We have done a lot. We've supported a lot of different sectors. I'm not going to run through everything on the slide, just so that if there's something today, if the work with EQUANS isn't quite right for you, we generally have other challenges coming. So do sign up to our platform. It's a really great mechanism of actually getting innovation off the ground very quickly. And I would say a really simple application form. We basically ask three, I'm not going to say idiot-proof questions. We want your idea in as concise a way as you possibly can in 300 words, not an essay, not an assignment. We want to know what your technology readiness level is and what IP constraints you have. Are there patents out there? Do you own them? Who owns the IP? And there are optional extras to attach. I'll come on to a few screenshots. So we'll need some high-level information. We always ask this of every competition that we do. Again, this is nothing different that you won't have seen before. We want a catchy, concise idea. Please try and capture the imagination of those assessing and give some relevant context as to what your idea is about and how easy it would be to implement. I said before a bit about the IP, but really kind of have you got freedom to operate? Who owns it? And the last thing I'm going to say on the attachments here is we'd like to have a pitch deck. Normally we do the pitch deck further down the line, but I think given that the kind of equity side of things with this fund in particular, please attach a pitch deck with your presentation, with your application. It means assessing is far easier to do. And then there's a last thing on the form is a sanity check. Make sure that everything's completed and then submit. And we have had people take under an hour to do this. Some people take their time. So I see progression when the applications come in. Typically, I get the 20, 40, 60%. So some people really chew over their ideas. And if you submit and you need to get out of jail free, I didn't say that quite rightly, come and ask myself and I can sort that out for you. Just a quick flag of how the process works in terms of how we define a challenge with the likes of the EQUANS team and how we move it forward. So at the minute we are now in the competition stage. We will run this for several weeks, but I would say don't leave it till the end. If we get really interesting applications, we will be passing them on to EQUANS sooner. We then help with the kind of solution selection side and help build relationships should you be successful. So at the kind of 3 to 4 stage, we'd hope there'd be a pitch session for those successful. And then we hope you go off into the sunset and hold hands and make magical innovation happen. Just a flag for results. So this is a really good process of getting real commercial traction. We have a huge diverse number of applications in this. It's obviously a slow process in terms of making sure you get that £2 million worth of traction, but a very good outcome nonetheless. And then I have to shamefully say some examples of things that we've done that I thought, one, this was really relevant to some of the challenges that are live right now, just to show the level of applications that we get and quite a diverse spread. So this one was kind of peer-to-peer trading on a site and actually an access project. So they had Interreg funding. So they actually had a pot of cash to deliver on this. Through our IX, they had 2 partners work together jointly. And then a shameless plug for my first ever challenge that I did with ENGIE back on the Rugeley site, which was a very diverse spread. I'll be safe to say Chris and Ben would remember this. Diverse spread of applications for solutions to acoustic offerings for the site. And those are ongoing at the moment. And then these are obviously 4. I've got to flag the 4 that we have live at the minute challenges, but there are 2 other challenges on the system. So if these are interesting to you, the needle stick one closes imminently. So if you have got something for puncture resistant materials, get your finger out and get your application in. And that is me. Thank you.
Louise, thank you very much indeed. So, well, I mean, yeah, get your finger out and get your application in. You can't be more straightforward than that. And of course, there was that rather nice image of you walking off hand in hand into the sunset as well. So terrific, Louise. Thank you very much for bringing to life that process part of how you go about applying to secure some of the funding from the new Clean Growth Innovation Fund.